Good morning. Happy Holy Saturday. I am speaking to you today, the day before Easter. Jesus is buried in the story. And for many in his day, and perhaps some still in our day, the light has gone out of the sky and hope has disappeared. And uncertainty has entered their world. They are left wondering what will happen now. Some have gone into hiding. Many have gone into hiding. Some, like Thomas, we don't know where he went. Peter, Peter said, I'm going fishing. Back to how things were. Maybe he thinks this has been a great few years and now I'll go back to do what I know best. Yet you and I know the rest of the story. This is not an end. It's a very real new beginning that reaches out to us to this very day. And so I wish you a very happy Easter and join with the ancient modern church with this oldest of all confessions. Christ has risen. He has risen indeed. In these last weeks of this semester, I am inviting you into a time of more focused reflection, assessment, and application of all that we've been engaged with during this semester. You'll be perhaps happy to know that you are not entering an assignment-heavy period, because the intention is that you will take this opportunity to do some serious and thoughtful reflection, work, about your experiences and learning in this class and what it has to do with you and your own future as you live out of God's vocational call and God's personal call on your life. I don't think, however, that not an assignment heavy week means less work. It just means a different kind of work. We begin this slow ending with only one reading assignment. It's the final chapter of Practicing Theology, titled Theology for a Way of Life by Miroslav Volf, one of the editors of your book. In this essay, which, by the way, I think is worth the price of the whole book, Volf invites you to consider theology not simply or only as an area of study, but also not simply as a way of life. In this essay, he takes us, in a sense, full circle to the question that this text begins with. What does all of this have to do with real life? He reminds us to concentrate our reflection on God, for whose sake we live a Christian way of life, and therefore, as theologians, engage in explicating Christian beliefs. By explication, Volf means to figure it out. Figure out the relationship between what I believe and how we live our lives as followers of Jesus. It means digging thoughtfully, prayerfully, intelligently, emotionally, spiritually into the text and figuring out for us and helping others figure it out, as well as an ongoing theological conversation. So read the final chapter and respond to the prompts there. In this current period of the liturgical Christian calendar, we are entering Easter week. I know most of us, because we don't come from liturgical backgrounds, think of Easter primarily in terms of Holy Week and Easter Sunday. But liturgically, Easter is just a beginning. And that for next several weeks in the lectionary and liturgical calendar of the church, Easter Sunday is just a beginning. And that for these next weeks, we'll be invited through the readings of Scripture to consider on many levels, historically, personally, spiritually, theologically, what it means to live as post-resurrection Christians. Just as the early disciples had to think about all of this, and just as the early church, including, of course, Paul, and I think you and me, right, in this course, had to keep figuring it out. We too have to do this. So in light of Wolf's final essay, we are being invited to think theologically about the journey that you have been on for these several weeks. It includes everything we've read, everything we've talked about, the spiritual practice you've been engaged with, your conversations around Bonhoeffer's Life Together. All of these things have been developed and brought into this course for this one purpose. One of my favorite, I think you've heard this before, one of my favorite questions is, so what? How then shall I live? Jesus is Lord, so what? Christ has risen, so what? So I'm asking you in this course to look back over all of these weeks and say, so what? How shall I live? Does this make any difference? I am truly looking forward to hearing from you. Let me also remind you that your team-based conversation and the conclusions about your engagement with Bonhoeffer's Life Together is due this week, sometime this week. Also remind you that I'm having trouble reaching my notes. Please don't be late about that. However you've decided to develop your response, it must be reflective of more than one person's thinking. Also remember that your personal reflection on your journey with a spiritual practice or discipline is due next week. So, blessings on this day. I would say to you, I hope you're seeing this after Easter. I hope you have a glorious day. I look forward to hearing from you next week. Happy Easter and blessings on your journey.